Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go live in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, almost live. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I am LBJ. You're there and I'm here. And you're listening to the Heartfelt Truth. Welcome. Let me start off by saying, as I always do, that I hope my voice finds you in good health, spiritually, mentally, and physically. Not necessarily in that order, but all equally important to help us through this thing we call life. And if you leave this podcast and you didn't get anything from it, you probably weren't listening. All right, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I'm LBJ. You're there and I'm here. And you're listening to the Heartfelt Truth. Welcome. All right, listen, ladies and gentlemen, right off the top, right off the cuff, I just want to share a few things. Yesterday, I had an amazing time. I got someone on my show, special guest, first-time Latino young film director for independent short films. We had a very nice conversation, and I will be putting that out soon, very soon. As soon as I get it all together, I want to do her some justice. She was absolutely fabulous in coming onto the show and sharing her thoughts and, her goals, dreams, aspirations, and so forth, and give you a little knowledge also on how to get started, I guess, or just basically, following your heart, and I definitely can relate to that. It's hard when you're creative and you have things you want to do and you just kind of go out of the mainstream and you don't do what most people think you should be doing. And she said something that was very interesting yesterday, and you'll hear it in the interview. But the one draw, and I don't want to spoil it for anybody, but the one thing that she did say that really made so much sense to me was that, we have this question in terms of life, this thing we call life and how to muddle through it. And I shared that, we all have things to deal with. We all had friends, family, loved ones, that might have left here. But we all have a contract, and we have a soul contract, and you're here for a reason. And indirectly, you are pretty much here to fulfill that contract. And I found that to be so amazing, so insightful for her to even say that. I thought that was pretty cool. So yeah, look forward to that. Her name is Jalen Perez. It's phenomenal. I'm sure you can check her out on all the social media outlets, and you can check her out on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher Radio, Podbean, and the infamous iHeartRadio. So yeah, check that interview out. It's going to be a whole lot of fun. All right, so moving on. Listen, I felt compelled this morning to put out a short video content in terms of what I was thinking about. I wake up in the morning, and when I first started my podcast, I used to tell people, yeah, listen, I'm an early riser, and I'm a 2-cup guy. I haven't said that in so long, but I am. I'm still a 2-cup guy. I have my little 2 cups of coffee in the morning and get myself going, and sometimes I get inspired. I put out a little podcast, and then sometimes I just, put my work together and stuff. I still have projects in the pipeline that I'm working on. But something hit me this morning. And, I'm looking at the news, and I'm not a big news guy, but then I don't want to be a hypocrite because I do watch it. And I watch all the outlets. I don't just, I don't hone in on one, because you got to get a perspective on both sides. You're not going to get anything if you just stay pigeonholed into one point of view. So I kind of look at them all. And I don't agree with a lot of them, and then, some of them I do. But, the funny thing right now is the movement, okay? And people that don't want to rock the boat. Obviously Black Lives Matter. That is the movement right now. And, something funny kind of hit me this morning. I'm looking at these celebrities. I'm looking at just people in general. I was looking at here's a story. There's a waitress in San Francisco, and a family had just come out for dinner. They were celebrating a birthday. And a gentleman was sitting by himself, later discovered that he is the CEO of a company somewhere in California. And don't know how it got started, but he started ranting some racial slurs at this Asian family. The waitress kind of stepped in, and she really, they brought her on the news. She said she didn't even know where it came from, but she got so passionate and irate about it that she was kicked him out of the restaurant. And she apologized to the customers, and she became friends. And that is very definitely not an act of kindness. It's an act of being a human being. And she later on shares the fact that she doesn't believe, and she says, it's horrible that people are getting judged by just the way they look, and let's throw in the color of their skin. And as I sat there, it was amazing. And then later on, the gentleman somehow sent a letter to the restaurant or to the family, and he apologized. He formally apologized. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said these things. And as I sat there, and I echo the sentiment of the waitress and even the family. This is what happens, people, when they get outed, and, they've been accused of being racist, and they actually unwittingly, show it out in public and realize that, oops, I got caught. In order to save their business and save face, they send you this formal apology. And as I sat there and listened to it again, just echoing the sentiment of the family and the waitress, like, I don't believe a word you're saying. Because what happens is you're trying to save face, you're trying to save your business. You don't want to have the world cave in on you simply because you were caught. It's no different than a person that goes into a department store or anywhere, or into a bank, and they decide to hold up the bank or steal something out of the store. If they get away with it, they don't say anything. They say to themselves, kudos to me, I didn't get caught. But the moment they get caught, the moment the officer puts their hand on their shoulder or catches them in the act of, they start to apologize. They say, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that. Then they come up with all kinds of stories to justify their actions. And I find that, it's just a reaction. Some people start crying, not laughing at anyone. They start crying and they're apologetic and I'm sorry. But it's just a reaction to getting caught. So how is anyone supposed to believe when someone says, I'm sorry, I didn't mean this, da 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 da? We're done. So my point being is, how do we expect to believe that? Because if just yesterday you were spewing out some really nasty stuff, and now you want me to say, oh, okay, that's all right. Well, the point I'm trying to get to again now is, and I became very passionate as I was watching these stories. Then I watched another gentleman who I actually really enjoy, ironically, not just because he's black or anything of that nature, but Darius Rucker. I mean, I've never met the man. He's had some really, really good songs over the years. And I saw a passionate interview with him, and he was, he's in country music, one of the few African Americans that are embarked in a music that he loves that is generally not expected to have a person of color. And, I kind of related to it because my father is a gentleman who was born in the South. And I could just remember it. I don't know the songs, but I know who one of my father's favorite musicians is Charlie Pride. I don't know if anybody remembers that name. Look him up, Charlie Pride. He was one of the first African-American country singers and loved the music. And let me tell you something, I have nothing against country music. I actually enjoy some of the songs and the stories. But people look at you, and even very, very dear friends of mine, you listen to country music? I'm like, yeah, it's not bad. There's nothing wrong with it. Why am I not supposed to listen to it? So it's kind of weird. So I listened to his little interview, and it really touched me, and I just had to jump on the microphone and share some of my personal thoughts because He got emotional right on TV, and I find myself, the older I get a little bit too, I'm getting emotional because as you get older and you look at your past, and you're not 20, you're not 30, you're not 40 years old, you're moving beyond that, and you look at all the things that you've kind of accepted, the kind of things that you just kind of let fly by the wayside, like water on a duck's ass, and you just let it roll off. But now it's being brought to the forefront, and this movement is really changing people's perceptions, their views. And some people are saying, yeah, you're right. We shouldn't have done that. But we got away with it for so long. Now, listen, I'm not picking on anybody. It's just the facts. So, with most movements, there comes change. And I'm hopefully optimistic that things will change. But I was so moved because, I have children. I have boys. I have a daughter. And as Darius, he said he actually had to sit down and talk with his son, who was about to drive, explain to him how it feels when you get stopped by a police officer and what you should and shouldn't do, being a young man of color. A lot of people don't have to have that conversation. And it just popped in my head real quick. Now, I'm going to say this here. Now, don't chop my head off, but if there's a conversation that's made to children, my lighter counterparts and my dear friends, is that they have a different conversation. It's almost derogatory to be careful of that person over there because they look like that, or watch this, you can't play with that one because he looks like that. And the conversation is a little different. The conversation, that I have and Darius had is life changing for your children. So, without going off on a tangent, my point I'm trying to get to is, I look back on even on my own life, and I say to myself, there are so many things that I just kind of let go by the wayside. And even in my last gig, which I really enjoyed, serving and doing my job, it was absolutely fabulous. I've met some fantastic people. But there were things that I actually endured myself. And I never really opened the door for a whole bunch of jokes and all that stuff. I never fell into that because I don't make jokes about other people per se. We can tease, and rip friends a little bit, but I don't make, derogatory, hurtful statements and jokes about people. So I never opened that door. But I must admit that I've heard things, I've seen things, I've witnessed things. I mean, as a young man to a young adult to a full-grown, fledged, 40-hour-a-week adult, I've listened, seen, and heard things personally. And you just let it go by. But then what's happening now is people are not letting it go by anymore. And my only wish is that if this is how it's going to be, of course, obviously, we don't want any violence. You don't want people going out hurting each other because they're angry. All right, the movement is trying to help people. What I've seen, the movement is very diverse. All right, in a lot of ways. But and the flip side and the other side of people that are angry, as human beings, we don't want change, but they're angry because they got caught. They got caught with the status quo is no more. I was very passionate when I watched a couple of these interviews, and then I just started thinking about my own life. And listen to me, without going down, and I have to, uplift my voice and my conversation here. It's not a pity party. It's not a woe is me kind of thing, because these things have happened. I mean, it's just amazing. I've had situations where I get on the phone, I'm talking to someone, and then I meet them in person and say, "That was you on the phone?" I'm like, "Yeah." "Oh, you definitely don't look the way you sound on the phone." Well, and I would laugh, well, it's a product of my environment. I mean, what do you want me to do? My mom and my dad. So these are the kinds of things that, I've dealt with. I've had people blatantly right in your face say something. I'm like, wow. I don't know. It's crazy. But anyway, I'm hopefully optimistic that the world will change and change for the better. It's a slow process, but I've said it in one of my other podcasts. until people get to that place of acceptance and full acceptance of understanding what's going on in the world and how we're going to live together peacefully. And it's going to be a slow process. It's the way it is. And I think about my kids and other people's kids, and family, my nephews, my nieces. It's kind of, it can be very, very moving and challenging at best. So there you have it. I just want to put it out there. I know some people are saying, oh, here we go. And listen, here's the deal. Here's my disclaimer. You know me. I'm inspirational, motivational, and I try to give people just another way of looking at things. And if my conversation today just did not fit your agenda or your palate, that's okay. If you choose not to get back to the LBJ, the heartfelt truth again, I get it. I hope that one day you might, have a change of heart and come back and say, he made sense. See, this is not about being right. It's about making sense. That's the way I talk, because, it's common sense. At the end of the day, I mean, it's a hell of a concept, period, to see any person on the ground in distress and you decide not to help them and not even knowing them. Think about that. And I always used to, talk to the students and give them concepts. You have family members, you have siblings, you have relatives, you have a mother and father, hopefully, and I'm sure you did at one point or you do in your life because you're here. The fact of the matter is, I used to get on students that used to kind of be disrespectful to the teachers, and I'd say, well, what if that was your mother right there and you decided to do what you did? How would you feel? What would be one of the first things you want to do? You want to kick somebody's butt. You don't talk like that to my mother. Hence, think about what you do. Think about what you do before you do it. Step back, check out your actions and make another decision. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, I kind of went on a little bit, and that's fine. I was moved by Darius Rucker and a couple other people, the waitress who stood up for the Asian family, and it's just, I felt compelled to say something because myself, like I said, I've had this. You know what's happening real quick, and I'm going to end it on this here. You know what's happening right now with the movement, and a lot of people don't want to rock the boat. People don't want to be judged, but I'm going to tell you this here. I don't care where you came from or what environment you lived in. If you lived in an all-white community, you lived in a diverse community, you lived in an all-black community, an all-Spanish community, Asian, whatever the case may be. The fact of the matter is what this movement is doing right now, and people are so passionate, self-included, that it reopens and revisits in your mind the things that have happened, the things that you saw, that you knew that were ultimately, and without a reasonable doubt, not right, not fair, judgmental, racist. And you know what you did? A lot of people, if you believe, you don't believe, what you're taught in the Bible, they just turned the other cheek and you walked away. And you say to yourself quietly, hopefully this will get better. And as famously said by another gentleman who I never met, you hope down the road that you're judged by your character and your content and not by the color of your skin. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for allowing me to come into your life for the last few minutes. I hope you found my voice somewhat inspirational, a little motivational, and just gives you another way of looking at things. So what I'm challenging you to do is at some point in time today, go in the bathroom, close the door, and then look in the mirror and ask yourself this one question. Are you part of the problem or part of the solution? And are you going to leave this world a little bit better than when you got here and the way you found it? Think about that. And with that being said, as I always do, take care of yourself. Take care of your families, because family is so important. And as I say, if you see someone that needs a helping hand, if you can, stick yours out and try to help them if you can. I believe this one act really, really will make the world a better place. And it's going to be one of those things that help you on your journey to becoming the best person that you were meant to be. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm LBJ. You're there, and I'm here. And you've been listening to the Heartfelt Truth. We will talk again. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening to LBJ, the Heartfelt Truth. I'm LBJ. If you have any comments or feedback, reach out for me at lbjtheheartfelttruth@gmail.com. Also, look me up on my social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And don't forget to check out my interview with upcoming young Latina Jalen Perez. She's a director, co-writer, and producer, and she has racked up several awards in quite a few film festivals. Should be fun.